democracy out here right now.
No justice, no peace!
We have not found a larger inner city garden anywhere in the U.S.
In the middle of downtown, you have 13 acres of people growing food. They posted a notice.
They want us out of the garden.
¡Justicia! ¿Dónde está la justicia para nosotros?
Scott Kennedy, who's the really talented director of the movie, came to us, God, it seems like a long time ago. It was 2003, and said there is this extraordinary place in South Central Los Angeles, which is being called the South Central Farm, the largest urban garden in the country. And I think there's a story there because they want to evict the people who've been working on this property, turning it into this extraordinary 14-acre oasis, the largest urban garden in the country, with 500 varieties of trees, with organic produce that was feeding hundreds of local, mostly immigrant families. And we went down and checked this place out. It was clear that there was an important story. That was an environmental story. That was a story about food and politics. That was a story about real estate. It had kind of echoes of Chinatown, except instead of it being about water, it was about property. And we said, we really need to tell this story, and this is a story that's happening right in our own backyard. And that kicked off an adventure of the last few years with Scott and with a really great small group of people to make this movie.
The garden was born in '92 after the riots in that part of South Central Los Angeles, and it had tires and it had all sorts of trash, and it was just an eyesore. And sadly, that's what it looks like again.
Since the end of the film, the last 2 years, the garden, the property, is sitting vacant. And as you'll see in the film, a lot of things happen without kind of proper public hearings. And this was a case where they were trying to make this happen without proper environmental impact reports. And now there will be a proper environmental impact report. The farmers and their representatives are exploring their legal options to see if it's possible to get this property back and to turn it back into a farm. And we'll see what happens. So it's a kind of stay tuned moment.
Stuart and I have been calling this the little movie that could, which isn't an unusual thing for documentaries, because there's always a good story about how hard it is to get them made and how long it takes and all the twists and the turns. The response has been fantastic. Obviously, there's a lot more interest in the film from really great places, universities and festivals, and probably now we'll be able to get a theatrical distributor to be a part of the distribution of the film. And we've long planned for there to be a social campaign built around whatever kind of release the film has for the life of the DVD, because this is about the community, this is about environmental pieces, this is about social justice, and these things are so in the zeitgeist now that a film like this can really be an interesting tool for people to use locally. And in Los Angeles, it's a local Los Angeles story, though it has all these large, issues echoed. So people start to sort of take notice of what's happening in their own city and maybe evaluating it differently.
Yeah, I want to add a couple of things to that. This is a story that we always saw had kind of universal dimensions to it. It takes place in this 14-acre parcel in Los Angeles, but again, it's an environmental story. This is a story about community organizing, and this is certainly a moment where we see that community organizers can have a lot of power, maybe even all the way to the White House. This is a story about food politics, because we really do need to look at what we eat and how that affects our energy consumption. And so there's a lot of issues that kind of stack up in this movie. And what we've seen is that this is really a story that's kind of echoed across the country. It won a film festival here. It's played from Maine to Florida to the West Coast. And we see people like really get fired up at this movie. And I think the Academy nomination is an echo of that. That there's something about this film and the people in this film that really has touched a nerve. And there's a moment in the movie that's my favorite, which is when one of the organizers says, "Not this time." Because this is really a story at heart about a group of people who don't often get a voice, who really courageously step out and take their voice and make sure that they're heard. And the outcome of the story may not be exactly what we want it to be, but in some way, it's the inspiration of that is really powerful. And I think it's part of what's brought people to the film. I think the other piece that people have really responded to is that everyone is treated with a lot of respect, but also in all their dimensions. There's not like all good guys and all bad guys in this story, but we really see how the system works, and it's not very often where a camera is shining a light on that over a period of 3 or 4 years. And I think that's the other thing that really impresses people, is that you feel like you get a glimpse into something that we all really need to see.
And the only other thing I would add to that, which is, lightning in a bottle and timing and alchemy, which are things you can never predict, is that all of these issues that this film deals with, including the reevaluation of what value is and what is valuable, because we've now learned that, money is not what we thought it was, and wealth is not what we thought it was. And it's a time, I think, where emotionally and psychologically people are reevaluating what's valuable to them. And yes, this property was owned by someone, but the way in which it was being used was of the public good, and it was for a greater purpose. And I think that's a more recognizable fact now than when we were filming the film. And it just seems to be getting more and more powerful as time goes on, unfortunately. But the thing that I also think is emotional about the film is that there were a group of activists born from this experience that will never not be activists again. And they're really extraordinary, all of them. And many of them are young, who now may even end up in Los Angeles politics one day. And this experience will follow them in terms of how they look at the city that they may, in fact, be part of governing, which would be great.